Hello fellow Jurassic Park fans and welcome to another speed build for Jurassic World Evolution that brings a little bit of the movie into your parks. If you didn't catch it, I already built a movie-accurate Jurassic Park helicopter arrival, so the next challenge was to build a movie-accurate T-rex paddock. I will also be doing a recreation of Nedry's Jeep getting stuck, so if you want to see that and a lot more Jurassic World Evolution content, subscribe and ring the bell, and if you're feeling particularly generous, give a thumbs up. Alright, so I'm taking screenshots for the thumbnail right here, but let's rewind about an hour or so, and I will talk you through the complete build in a mini speed build so you can add this T-rex paddock to your own park. There are definitely some inconsistencies in the movie, but the sharp drop-off isn't actually one of them. There is a really simple explanation for that. Let's get started. The first order of business is figure out at which angle the terrain can actually be manipulated to be a perfectly smooth and straight cliff face. So I said turn to turn in increments or rotate in increments, and then I moved about with the terrain, and you can see that the third gate is at the right angle. Every island has one or two angles that allows you to do this. Then I extended it with more fence and more gates, and this will help us create the sharp cliff face of the concrete moat, or concrete wall, I should say. It's not really a moat, but you'll see. I'm just making sure I have the right fence, and I'm curving it from that point on. What we see in the movie, the entire side of the paddock is curved, but to make the best possible concrete wall, I had to make the end of it straight with the gates like that. So that's compromise number one, but I feel like it's one we had to make it the most realistic and the best looking as possible. Right now I'm adding the tour. I'm going to be laying down the track several different times. I kept changing my mind about the distance and whether it should have concrete around the track or not. Here I'm actually checking the movie scene, which is why I'm pausing. In the movie we have like this really narrow base around the tour track, but in the game we can only choose between like a fully paved road or no concrete at all. So I settled for no concrete. This is just some terrain work on the outside of the exhibit. I'm graying down the dirt a little bit by adding some faded rock texture underneath to most closely resemble what we see in the movie. Cleaning it up right now. And now to start with adding foliage. And we're going to be really going ham with the shrubbery brush and the tree brush, because really the entire habitat is just completely overgrown. It's actually a very, very bad dinosaur viewing experience. I mean, the entire park is, but this paddock in particular is completely overgrown, so it's kind of senseless. Anyway, a very important addition to our T-rex paddock is, of course, the iconic goat feeder. Now, notice in the movie that it's on a little bit of a mound, so that's what I'm recreating here. You'll see me fiddle with this quite a bit. First off, I placed the wrong feeder. This is the herbivore feeder, but also the mound had to be a little bit lower, and even later on in the video, I actually move it closer to our concrete wall face, cliff face that we have. But for now, this one will do. And again, we're just adding even more foliage, making it completely overgrown. Now the next step is to actually make the drop off, and you can see how that actually works. It's not an inconsistency. I'm getting distracted by a goat. It's not an inconsistency in the movie. It actually works really simple. You can have a sharp drop at one part of the fence and have the terrain level at the other part of the fence simply by having a slope in between. Now this tree is a little bit higher than I would have liked it. It's lower in the movie, but to get it lower in game meant the distance between the moat or the concrete wall and the tree was getting like ridiculously big. So this is one of the compromises I had to make. The tree is a little bit higher than I would want, but I couldn't make it any more extreme than this. The drop off couldn't be lower than it is now, or else the tree would be a mile away. And here's a really simple trick to make that concrete wall. Just place path on it. It's actually not the thick path, it's just the thin path, and it goes crazy over here. Yeah, we have some Z fighting going on. That's fixable, but the water was definitely causing that issue. So you're gonna see me here, there it goes again. So you're gonna see me revert back to a save file quite often, and that's actually a tip for you. It's pretty much a slap in the face that we don't have an undo hotkey, that we don't have Control Z. So if you're building something and you're thinking, ooh, this could be a step that messes everything up, just make sure you save your game before you make that step, so you can go back to your baseline, to the last stable point. So we have our concrete wall. Okay, so here's a little interlude, or maybe a big interlude, because I still get a lot of people saying that they either don't know how the T-Rex paddock works, or they are convinced, absolutely convinced, that it doesn't work, that there is no way, shape, or form that it works. I think it does work, but you have to let go of the idea that it's a moat in the sense that you would traditionally think of, and instead think of it as just a part of the exhibit that's much lower than the rest, with a sharp cliff face that's covered with concrete on the fence side. So a moat to, keep an animal inside its enclosure needs to be wide enough that the animal can't step over or jump across it, and only really deep and steep enough that the animal can't climb into the moat from one side and out of the moat on the other side. And here we have a beautiful picture of a, classic zoo moat. Now, for a moat, we would have two sides, and we should be able to see two sides of it in the movie. You have this side, which would be the fences side, and this side, which is the side that's inside the enclosure. And this distance would have to be big enough that the T-Rex would not be able to step over it. There's literally no way that this is the case for the entire exhibit, because when we look at this image, for example, we can see that the goat gets spawned fairly close to the fence over here. There's very little distance in between here. Obviously, we're dealing with perspective, I'm aware of this, but still, if we look at it from the top down, this would be a fairly small distance, and we know there isn't a moat present for the T-Rex to not be able to step over, because we see in this scene that the T-Rex does indeed step over it. So conclusively, there is no moat on this side of the fence of the paddock. Now, in this part of the scene, we see the concrete cliff face that many people postulate is one side of our moat, which would be this side. People think that that concrete wall is this side that we're looking at. But if that's the case, there I am, then where is the other side of the moat? This is a huge, absolutely mammoth distance, big enough to have this big-ass tree in it. But also, when we look at this, look at all of this foliage that's inside it, and here as well, at no point do we see the other side of the wall. We never see this side over here. I'm gonna use a different color right now. We never see this side, which leads me to believe that this side it doesn't exist. There is no other side to it. The entire enclosure is lowered. And how does that work? Well, I found this very handy image. So this is an illustration of what we are actually looking at. The cars come up. Let me go back to the red one. The cars come over here. I'm in the wrong layer. They move in that direction. They're stopped because of the power outage. One of the cars is right in front of the goat feeder. And on this side right here, so this fence, there is no moat on the inside of the enclosure. There is nothing going on over here. The exhibit is level with what is outside of the exhibit, so the T-Rex, when it breaks the fence, it can simply step over the concrete base of the fence and get out. However, this entire section of the exhibit is lower and is lined with concrete on this end. I should have used a different color. Here you go. Blue is concrete, okay? This is concrete. So this is the concrete wall. Oh, first and foremost, I should address that this schematic shows that this would also be a steep cliff face. That's debatable. We never see evidence that this side is also steep. It could also easily be, as I've done in my exhibit, that it slopes gently from one side to the other. So there's a nice slope over here, so the T-Rex could actually be able to... it's starting to become a total mess, but the T-Rex would actually be able to walk to this part of the enclosure. Straight up, the fence just ends here, okay? There are clearly limitations to what they were able to build on site, and there are inconsistencies between what they were able to build on site and what they built on the soundstage, where they actually had the animatronic for the Rex. There are inconsistencies, but it's perfectly plausible that, you know, over here, I'm in the wrong layer again, excuse me, that over here, this would be where the drop is. We don't see it from this angle, but it could be there. There's nothing to suggest that there is a drop there, but, you know, we're dealing with shooting on location, yada, yada, yada. So return to this beautiful drawing. That is why I do not think we are dealing with a moat, but we are instead just dealing with a sharp cliff face on, on one side, on the outer side of the exhibit. I just knew I'd get questions about this, so I felt like I should dive into this. This schematic is quite helpful. We have our big tree that the car gets tossed into. A little bit of water, which is supposed to be like the little puddle that the pipe feeds into, that Lex takes shelter in. Can't do stuff like a pipe and such, but I felt like a little puddle of water was necessary. More foliage. I can't stress this enough. This exhibit is super basic. It's just trees. Brachiosaurus would be proud. It's just trees. Also some trees on the outside. And of course, a very important addition is the restroom that gets wrecked, or gets rexed, I should say. It's really close to the track. It has the sign right by it. I try to mimic the orientation of everything as closely as possible, based on just the few shots we have. More trees, just, you know, more trees. Endless amounts of trees. I'm watching this scene again. This is so funny. Oh, top tip, leave those gates. Do not delete those gates until you are completely done, because otherwise you risk messing up your concrete wall. So leave those as they are. Okay, so this is a step where I'm adding the tunnel. It's not a perfect tunnel, but it's the best we can do. I used my monorail trick, and I'm using the enhanced terrain tools later to close it off. I felt like this was the best approximation of what we see in the movie. That was very satisfying. That was almost like ASMR. Anyway, here we have our tunnel. I'm going to be adding the terrain around it to, I don't know, make it a tunnel. This is, you know, it goes absolutely haywire over here, but you can fix this really easily. Alright, so that's the best I can do in terms of a tunnel. Alright, so this is the step where I wanted to recreate the mountain that is the backdrop for the T-Rex paddock. Obviously, this was shot on location in Kauai, and Kauai has really epic mountainscapes. So I used, you know, the two references that I could screenshot in the movie to replicate the shape of those mountains to the best of my ability. So we have like a pretty distinctive shape in one shot, and another distinctive ridge to the mountain in another shot. So that's what I'm replicating over here. Now, one thing, I chose this end of the map because there are no mountains or tall mountains behind it, so it would really help with the silhouette and the end result. I kind of wish I had also taken the direction of the sun into account, because right now we have the sun behind the mountain, and it's creating a really stark shadow, which I'm really starting to regret at this point. So that's something I should have taken into account. When I started, I only thought about the angle that would make the moat the best it could possibly be. but I should have done it on, I should have flipped it around, so I would have the sun facing our side of the mountain, the most important side of the mountain. But, you know, we're going to be switching to nighttime anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. It's just something I thought of while building. And if you're going to be recreating this in one of your own parks, you might as well learn from my mistakes. Oh, I'm adding the water back in because I realized my, my little tunnel had gotten rid of it. So I'm just checking, thinking, checking, thinking. By the way, nice attention to detail. The tour cars even go up a little bit as they go into the tunnel. So I deleted the gates because I'm almost done. Hiding that a little bit. Adding some 3D texture within the exhibit. Here we get our Rexes. They're going to be destroying our fences. Okay, so I had to get rid of the track for a little bit, so I'm creating like a mini enclosure with a stronger fence, and I'll be dropping the Rexes in there so they will destroy the right fence to break out. Now this is where I realized that distance between the two breaking points of the fence was too big, so this is where I realized I had to relocate the goat feeder and move all of it closer together. Because the distance between where the Rex breaks out and where she tosses the car off the concrete wall is pretty close together. It's even closer together in the movie than it is here. But this was as close as I could get it without the goat feeder messing up my sharp cliff face. Oh, I actually managed to get it a little bit closer. Kudos to me. Okay, so the first Rex is in. She's going to break the fence where Rexy in the movie tosses the tour car over the edge. And the other Rex is going to be breaking the fence where she initially breaks out of her paddock. And there she goes, doing her job. It actually took quite a while. Because she alternated between attacking that part of the fence and the part of the fence that I actually wanted her to attack. So it was a little bit of a hassle. And the other Rex was being particularly uncooperative, so it's not as easy as fast forward and editing magic makes it seem here. Yeah, but some people really couldn't figure out how the T-Rex paddock actually works, because you have a sharp drop-off on one side, and oh, here she goes, very elegant. And the paddock is level with the outside of the paddock on the other side. But yeah, there's just a really simple solution. There's a slope in between to connect the two. Alright, so here we are. We're back at the start. We're back at taking screenshots. I hope you enjoyed the speed build. And let me know down in the comments below what you think of this movie-accurate recreation of the T-Rex paddock. You know, if anything, I think this concrete wall trick is really, really cool to use in exhibits. So have at it, Haas. I really hope you enjoy having that in your parks. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more. And until next time, enjoy the game.